Okay, so have you ever been listening to a podcast and thought, hey, I could do this?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Well, it's honestly easier than you might think to get started these days. And today we're going to do a deep dive into all the gear and software you'll need.
Yeah, and the good news is you don't need a ton of fancy equipment to make a really great podcast.
Exactly.
A lot of it is more about just knowing what to look for and how to use it.
Right. And since the mic is kind of the heart of any podcast setup,
Totally.
that seems like a logical place to start.
For sure. The mic is crucial. I mean, that's what's
Right.
capturing your voice.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure it sounds good.
Yeah.
We found that most of the sources we looked at broke microphones down into two main types, USB and XLR.
Yeah, those were like the podcast 101 options.
Exactly. And for good reason.
Mm.
They're the most common types of mics for podcasting.
So what's the difference? Like, for someone who's totally new to this, why would you choose one over the other?
Well, a USB mic plugs directly into your computer.
Okay.
Super easy to set up.
Plug and play, pretty much.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
XLR mics, on the other hand, require something called an audio interface,
Oh.
which we can talk about in a bit.
Well, let's circle back to that.
But basically, an audio interface is like a separate device that connects your XLR mic to your computer.
Okay, so it adds a little bit of complexity, but can potentially give you better sound quality.
Exactly.
Got it.
So it really depends on your budget and how much control you want over your sounds.
So if someone is just starting out and wants to keep things super simple, USB is probably the way to go.
For sure.
And then as they get more experienced and maybe want to explore more advanced setups, they can always upgrade to an XLR mic and an audio interface later on.
Exactly. It's easy to scale up as you go.
Love that. Okay, so let's talk about some specific mics that our research highlighted.
Sure.
One that kept popping up was the Samson Q2U.
The Samson Q2U, a classic.
And what's great about this one is that it's actually both USB and XLR,
Yeah, it's super versatile.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you could start with it as a USB mic, and then if you decide to upgrade to a more professional setup later on, you can just plug it into an audio interface using the XLR output.
Totally. It's a great way to kind of future-proof your setup without spending a ton of money up front.
Okay, I like that. Best of both worlds.
Exactly. You're not limited.
Now, for listeners who are maybe ready to invest a bit more in that pro sound, one of the sources raved about the Shure SM7B. Have you used that one?
Oh, the SM7B is legendary. It's a favorite among a lot of professional podcasters and musicians.
What makes it so special?
It's known for having this really rich, warm sound.
Yeah.
It's an XLR mic, so you would need an audio interface, but it's definitely worth considering if you're serious about sound quality.
So it's more of an investment, but you're getting that studio quality sound.
Exactly. It's a serious microphone.
So you've got the microphone figured out, but what about headphones? I feel like those are essential too, right?
Oh, headphones are crucial for podcasting.
What kind should people be looking for?
So the most important thing for podcasting headphones is that they're closed back.
Close back. Okay.
Have you ever heard of those?
I've heard the term, but I'm not sure I could tell you exactly what it means.
So basically, closed back headphones have like a solid ear cup
Okay.
that prevents sound from leaking out,
Oh, I see.
which is really important
Yeah.
because you don't want your microphone to pick up any sound from your headphones.
Right, because that would create like an echo or feedback.
Exactly. It would sound really unprofessional.
So closed-back headphones are all about preventing that from happening.
Exactly. They isolate the sound so you can monitor your audio clearly.
Got it. Are there any specific headphones that you recommend?
Yeah, the Audio-Technica ATH M50X are really popular among podcasters.
Okay.
They're closed back, they have really good sound quality, and they're super comfortable to wear for long periods of time.
Those are always important factors, especially if you're going to be recording for hours on end.
Oh, for sure. You don't want uncomfortable headphones.
No way.
They can really distract you from what you're doing.
Absolutely. So we've covered microphones and headphones, which are obviously the essentials.
Those are the must-haves.
But now let's talk about this mysterious audio interface thing, because I have a feeling some people might be wondering, do I need one of these?
Right. So an audio interface is basically like a translator between your microphone and your computer. You see, most professional-grade microphones use an XLR connection,
Okay.
which sends an analog signal.
Got it.
But computers use digital signals.
Makes sense.
So the audio interface takes that analog signal from your microphone and converts it into a digital signal that your computer can understand.
Ah, okay, so it's like the bridge between the two.
Exactly.
And you said earlier that you need an audio interface if you're using an XLR microphone,
That's right.
but not if you're using a USB microphone.
Exactly. Because USB microphones have a built-in audio interface.
What? Oh, that makes sense.
It's all built into one.
So that's why they're so easy to set up.
Exactly.
You literally just plug them in and you're good to go.
Exactly. But if you want to use a high-quality XLR microphone, you'll need an audio interface to connect it to your computer.
So it's kind of a trade-off. You get the simplicity and affordability of a USB microphone, or you get the potentially higher sound quality and flexibility of a XLR microphone and an audio interface.
Exactly. It all depends on your needs and your budget.
And one model that kept popping up in our research was the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2.
Yeah, the Scarlett is a great option, especially for beginners. It's super user-friendly, it has really good sound quality, and it's very affordable.
Perfect for someone who's just starting out and doesn't want to spend a ton of money.
Exactly. And it has 2 inputs.
Oh, cool.
So you could even do a co-hosted podcast with it.
Nice. Okay, so we've got our microphones, our headphones, and even our audio interface all figured out. But what about the software? That's where the real magic happens, right?
Oh, totally. The software is where you take your raw audio and turn it into a polished podcast episode.
So many options, it can be kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, there are a ton of different software programs out there.
Right. So before we get into specifics, can you just break down what podcasting software actually does?
Sure, so basically it lets you record your audio,
Okay.
edit it,
Yeah.
and then export it into a format that you can upload to like Apple Podcasts or
Yeah.
Spotify.
So it's like the all-in-one tool for taking our podcast from raw audio to finished product.
Exactly. Think of it like your digital recording studio.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the options our research uncovered.
Sounds good.
Audacity is one that I feel like everyone has heard of.
Yeah, it's like the OG podcasting software.
Right, and for good reason. It's free.
Free is always good.
Always.
Yeah,
Especially when you're just starting out.
exactly. And even though it's free, it's actually super powerful.
Yeah, I was surprised by how many features it has.
Me too. You can do a lot with Audacity.
It might take a little time to learn the ropes.
Yeah, it's not the most intuitive software in the world, but there are tons of tutorials online.
Exactly. So if you're willing to put in a little effort, you can learn how to use it and create a really great sounding podcast, totally for free.
Yeah, it's a great option for beginners.
Now, for someone who maybe wants a more user-friendly interface or needs more advanced features, our research also mentioned Adobe Audition.
Yeah, Audition is definitely a step up from Audacity in terms of features and polish.
It's like the professional level option.
Exactly.
So it's more expensive, obviously.
Yeah, it's a subscription-based software,
Right.
but you get a lot for your money. It's incredibly powerful
Yeah.
and has pretty much every feature you could ever need for audio editing.
So if someone is serious about podcasting and wants to have all the bells and whistles, Audition is worth checking out.
Absolutely. It's the industry standard for a reason.
Now, there was one more software that I wanted to ask you about because it seemed really interesting. Hindenburg Journalist.
Oh, yeah, Hindenburg is cool.
It sounded like it's geared more towards narrative-driven podcasts.
Exactly. It's designed specifically for storytelling.
Okay.
So if you're doing like a documentary-style podcast or something with a lot of interviews and sound design,
Uh-huh.
Hindenburg is really good at that kind of stuff.
Interesting. So it's less about recording a single host or co-hosted conversation.
Right.
And more about piecing together different audio elements to tell a story.
Exactly.
Cool. I'm putting that one on my list to check out.
Yeah, you should. It's a really well-made software.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Microphones, headphones, audio interfaces, software.
We have been busy.
But there are a few other accessories that I wanted to touch on briefly.
Okay.
Because they came up a few times in the research.
Sure.
One of them was pop filters.
Ah, yes, those are important.
So what exactly do they do? I feel like I've seen them, but I don't really know what purpose they serve.
So have you ever noticed how sometimes when you say words with like a P or a B sound,
Yeah?
it creates like a little puff of air?
Oh, yeah.
That's called a plosive.
A plosive.
And those plosives can really mess with your audio if they hit the microphone directly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it creates like a popping sound.
Oh, I see.
So a pop filter is basically just like a thin screen that you put between your mouth and the microphone.
Okay.
And it helps to diffuse those plosives before they reach the mic.
So it's like protecting the microphone from those bursts of air.
Exactly. It helps to create a cleaner sound overall.
Got it. And they're not very expensive, are they?
No, they're super affordable.
Good to know. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to ask about was boom arms.
Oh, yeah. Those are nice to have.
I've been seeing more and more people using them lately.
Yeah, they're becoming increasingly popular.
So what's the benefit of using a boom arm? Is it just like an aesthetic thing, or does it actually improve your audio quality?
It's definitely both.
Okay.
So a boom arm is basically like a stand for your microphone,
Mm-hmm.
that attaches to your desk,
Okay.
and it allows you to position the microphone exactly where you want it,
Gotcha.
which can be really helpful for getting that optimal sound.
Right, because you're not limited by the position of your computer or anything like that.
Exactly. You have total control over the mic placement.
And it just looks cool, too.
It does. It gives your setup that professional studio vibe.
Totally. It's kind of like having a little helper arm for your microphone.
Exactly. And it frees up space on your desk, too.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive into podcasting gear, I wanted to talk briefly about different podcasting setups.
Yeah.
Because depending on your vision for your podcast, you might need slightly different equipment or software.
Right.
So the research mentioned 3 main setups: solo, co-hosted, and remote.
Okay.
Let's start with solo, because I feel like that's how a lot of people start out.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just you and the mic.
Exactly. You have complete creative control.
Right. You're the host, the interviewer, the editor, everything.
Yep. It's all you,
Yeah,
which can be really freeing.
totally. And then there's co-hosted, which obviously adds another layer of complexity.
Hey, you've got to think about things like how many microphones you need
Right.
and how you're going to record everyone's audio.
Because you ideally want each person to have their own microphone.
Exactly. It just sounds so much better that way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then for remote podcasting,
Which has become so popular lately.
oh yeah, it's huge.
Everyone's podcasting from their own little corner of the world.
Exactly. So with remote podcasting, you have even more things to consider.
Right, like internet connection.
Oh my gosh, yes. Reliable internet is crucial.
Essential. And then what software are you going to use to record everyone remotely?
Right. Because not all software is created equal when it comes to remote recording.
True, true. Okay, so it seems like we've covered pretty much everything you need to know to get started with podcasting gear and software.
I think so.
Obviously, we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
Always. But this should give our listeners a good foundation.
Definitely.
And honestly, the best way to learn is just to dive in and start experimenting.
Totally. You don't need to have everything figured out perfectly before you start.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh yeah, everyone makes mistakes when they're first starting out.
It's all part of the learning process.
Exactly.
And you know what they say? The best podcast setup is the one you actually use.
So true. Don't get so caught up in finding the perfect gear that you never actually hit record.
Such a good point. So if you're feeling inspired, don't wait. Start small, experiment, have fun with it, and see where it takes you.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be listening to your podcast.
That would be awesome.
Okay, on that note, that's a wrap on this deep dive into podcasting gear and software. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to start sharing your voice with the world.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.